Good evening, and welcome to the virtual public information meeting for state project number 53-189, which is the removal of bridges 388 and 389 and revision of Connecticut Route 17 southbound over New London Turnpike in Glastonbury, Connecticut. We hope that everybody in attendance finds the presentation informative and that we'll be able to address and answer any questions or concerns you may have. My name is Jonathan Kang, and I am a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Before we begin the presentation and introduce the project team, I would like to go over a few housekeeping points and explain the format for tonight's meeting. The meeting will consist of two parts that will last approximately 20 minutes each. The first portion will consist of the presentation of design by the department's consultant engineers for this project, WSP, who are the civil and highway lead, and VN engineers who are the traffic lead. This will be followed by the second portion, where we will host a live question and answer session. There are three means by which you will be able to communicate with us during the live question and answer session. Questions can be submitted via email, calling and leaving a voice message, or if you're joining us on the Microsoft Teams app, you can use the chat window at the right side of the Teams window. The project email, voicemail, and chat box will be posted by the project team during the question and answer session. Answers to all questions will be posted in the chat window, and all questions and answers will be read out loud. Questions may be asked at any time during the presentation. They will be answered during the question and answer session. Primary means by which to communicate with the project team will be via email at dotproject53-189@ct.gov, as it is currently shown on the slide. Phones can be used by calling at 860-944-1111 and leaving a voice message. And lastly, once again, the chat box can be used if you are joining us through the Microsoft Teams application. The question and comment period by email or phone will be open through Monday, June 27th, 2022. Therefore, questions or comments that are thought of after tonight's meeting may be submitted until June 27th, 2022 via email or voicemail. There's also a project webpage where tonight's presentation, including the question and answer session, will be made available. The website will also include information that was explained on how to leave questions and comments for the project team. That website is https://portal.ct.gov/EOT Glastonbury 53-189, as it is currently shown on the slide. I'd like to now introduce the project team. First, we have with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Bart Sweeney, the Division Chief of Bridges, Louis Baccio, the Principal Engineer, Derek Lessard, the Supervising Project Engineer, and myself, Jonathan Kang, the Project Engineer. Additionally, Clove Harbor and Associates, or CHA, is working on the project as the department's consultant liaison engineers. From CHA, we have Donald Wurst, Project Manager, and Aaron Foster, Project Manager. Finally, the design team from WSP and VN Engineers, we have Stephen George, Project Manager as the Civil Lead, Catherine Carney as the Highway Design Lead, and Chris Van Zanten as the Traffic Design Lead. We invite everyone to complete the public survey after tonight's meeting, which has been established for this project. The survey will provide us with valuable feedback for improving the format of public information meetings in the future. There is also a civil rights flyer available. Links to both the public survey and the civil rights flyer are available on the project website mentioned earlier. Lastly, I'd like to state the following as part of Title VI Civil Rights. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We'll now begin the presentation of the project, and we'll first discuss the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act, which will be presented by Kevin Fleming, who is a transportation planner from the Department's Office of Environmental Protection. I'll now hand it over to him. Kevin?
Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. My name is Kevin Fleming, and as John mentioned, I'm a transportation planner here at DOT in the Office of Environmental Planning. And we're here tonight for a joint public informational / SEPA scoping meeting. So what exactly does that mean? What is SEPA and what do we mean by the term scoping? Well, the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA for short, provides a process for the various Connecticut state agencies to follow in order to identify and review any action that may have an effect on the environment. At its core, really the purpose of SEPA is to provide a public process for us to identify and assess the extent to which a proposed state action may affect the environment, and then also to evaluate any alternatives to avoid or minimize those impacts. Now, a really important component of SEPA is your opportunity to review a proposed project and give us feedback. So your comments and questions here tonight and throughout the entire public comment period, which expires on June 27th, is a really critical part of the SEPA process itself. So under SEPA, we have to consider the impacts that a proposed project may have on a really wide range of environmental resources. And now what you see here isn't necessarily an all-encompassing list, but it should give you a pretty good idea of the range of resources that we do have to consider under SEPA. We have to look at everything from cultural resources to air quality and noise to wetlands and endangered species. And then we also have to make sure that the project complies with the Connecticut State Plan of Conservation and Development. And actually, in the case of this particular project, since it involves federal funding, like the majority of our projects, we also have to look at these resources to ensure compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. So now that you have a general idea of what SEPA is and what needs to be considered under SEPA, what exactly is meant by the term scoping? Well, scoping is a really specific definition under SEPA, and the scoping process involves a really defined set of steps for public outreach. As shown here, SEPA scoping is defined as the gathering and analysis of information that a state agency will use to establish the extent of environmental review of a proposed state project. Basically, it's a way for us to get information from the public and the other state agencies so we can ultimately determine the proper level of environmental review and documentation needed for a project. Now, this process begins once we publish a notice of the project in the Environmental Monitor, and that in turn kicks off a minimum 30-day public comment period. For those of you who are not familiar with the Environmental Monitor, it's an online publication run by the Connecticut Council on Environmental Quality, and it basically tracks projects that go through the SEPA process, and it includes the relevant information for those projects. For this particular project, we published that scoping notice back on May 17th, and the comment period will run until the close of business on June 27th. And as I mentioned previously, the idea is to solicit comments from the various Connecticut state regulatory agencies, such as the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, the Department of Public Health, and the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office. That's just to name a few, as well as from the various municipalities and the public, to really help identify any potential alternatives, and then also to help identify any specific environmental resources that need to be analyzed in the project area. As you know, often the local community has a really unique understanding of the project area, including not only the resources located there, but also an awareness of any community concerns, needs, issues, or controversies. So ultimately, the SEPA scoping process will help us determine if there are any significant environmental impacts associated with the project, and if there is a need to undertake a detailed and comprehensive environmental impact evaluation, or EIE. So what we have here is a very high-level chart of the SEPA process. It shows where we are currently, and those are the boxes outlined in red. And then it also shows what the next steps are under SEPA. As I mentioned earlier, once we went ahead and published the project notice in the Environmental Monitor back in May, that officially kicked off the SEPA scoping phase for this particular project. And when the scoping period ends on June 27th, we'll go ahead and review all of the comments received. We'll consider any environmental impacts, and then determine if the project has the potential to have a significant impact on the environment. And then based on that information, we'll determine if an EIE is needed or not. An EIE is a detailed and comprehensive document that analyzes significant environmental impacts and also compares the impacts of any alternatives considered for a particular project. And once a decision is made on whether an EIE is needed or not, That determination and the justification behind it will be published in the Environmental Monitor, along with a synopsis of the comments we received and our responses to those comments. So if an EIE is in fact needed, we'll go ahead and start that process and start producing that document. However, if we determine that one's not required, then the publication in the Environmental Monitor that I just referenced will conclude the SEPA review for the project. So with that, I thank you all for your time. Now I'll hand the presentation over to Steve George, who will introduce the project. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm Steve George, the project manager and civil lead from the design firm WSP. Again, I would like to thank everyone for attending this evening. Tonight, we will be providing an overview of the project and key details, including proposed plans, an overview of the traffic analysis, discussion of maintenance and protection of traffic, and schedule. I would like to let you know that the plans we are presenting this evening are at a preliminary design level, which is approximately 30%. So I would like to start with an overview of where the project is located. The project is located on the western side of Glastonbury, south of Route 2 and Hebron Avenue. The project limits will extend east-west along the London Turnpike from Sycamore Street to just east of the Williams-Oak Street intersection. The project limits also extend along Route 17 northbound from Hubbard Street to the south to the merge with the Route 17 northbound on-ramp to the north. Currently, the Route 17 southbound off-ramp splits into two separate ramps at New London Turnpike. One leg of the southbound ramp off-ramp goes to New London Turnpike westbound, and the other one goes to the New London William Street East Oak intersection. One of the main purposes of this project is to eliminate that ramp that goes to the Williams Oak intersection and consolidate all ramp traffic to one off-ramp. This leads into the next slide, the project purpose and need. Due to low traffic volumes and the condition of Bridge 388, this project will remove the Route 17 southbound off-ramp, known as Ramp 7, that currently connects to New London Turnpike at the William Street East Oak Street intersection. By removing this ramp, it provides the following benefits. One, it eliminates one leg of a five-legged intersection, which improves the geometry as well as improves traffic flow and safety. It eliminates pavement and two bridge structures along the ramp, one of which, bridge number 388, is rated as structurally deficient and is in poor condition. Eliminating this ramp reduces future maintenance and costs over the long term. This project will also reconfigure the Route 17 southbound off-ramp, Ramp 5, and the southbound on-ramp, Ramp 3. This reconfiguration will accommodate New London Turnpike eastbound and westbound traffic, as well as all on and off-ramp traffic at a single lane roundabout located just west of Route 17. This project will also involve widening along New London Turnpike between the Route 17 northbound off and on ramps. This will improve traffic flow and safety within this section of roadway. And lastly, this project will improve the signing and striping along Route 17 northbound, which I'll now discuss. Currently, Route 17 northbound consists of two through lanes, which start south of Hubbard Street, and they continue northward. Exit signs for the Route 17 northbound off-ramp to New London Turnpike exit consist of side-mounted signs. The proposed improvements will provide a single through lane along Route 17 northbound, starting at Hubbard Street. The two through lanes will transition down to a single northbound through lane. A second lane, referred to as an auxiliary lane, will be added from the William Street East on-ramp to the New London Turnpike off-ramp. The auxiliary lane will allow vehicles exiting to New London Turnpike to have a dedicated lane for the off-ramp. A new side-mounted sign will be installed just north of Hubbard Street, and a new overhead cantilever sign will be installed just prior to the off-ramp to New London Turnpike. This overhead sign will provide improved sightline to vehicular traffic. Additionally, tree trimming will be performed as required for both new signs being proposed. These proposed improvements will provide safer traffic operations for Route 17 northbound traffic at this section of the highway. Now, moving on to what's being proposed along New London Turnpike. This slide shows the overall improvements being proposed along New London Turnpike, as well as the removal of the Route 17 southbound off-ramp, Ramp 7, that connects at the Williams Oak New London Turnpike intersection. Improvements along New London Turnpike consist of three primary locations. One, the roundabout and Route 17 southbound off and on ramp realignment located west of Route 17. Two, the widening between the Route 17 northbound off and on ramps. And three, the widening and new signalization at the Williams Oak Street intersection. The yellow highlighted areas on this image represent where new pavement will be installed. Additionally, new signage and pavement markings will be installed along the improved areas. As seen in the center of the slide, the Route 17 southbound off-ramp will be removed from Route 17 to the New London Turnpike Williams Oak Street intersection. This is approximately 2,200 feet of ramp removal. Along this ramp, the existing pavement structure will be removed and new grass will be established. Bridge 388, which carries Route 17 northbound over the off-ramp, will be removed, and Bridge 389, which carries the off-ramp over New London Turnpike, will also be removed. When Bridge 388 is removed, the superstructure, the upper section carrying Route 17 northbound, will be removed. This image shows the final condition. The bridge will be removed, fill will be placed below Route 17 northbound, and a new section of Route 17 northbound roadway will be reconstructed with a new pavement structure. When Bridge 389 is removed, the bridge deck, parapets and railing, steel girders, and substructure down to the footings will be removed. So essentially, all the elements shown in orange on this graphic will be removed. The existing bridge footings will remain in place. Following bridge removal, the ground will be graded upward from New London Turnpike to create grassed side slopes on either side of the roadway. A single lane roundabout will be constructed at the Route 17 southbound off-ramp, known as Ramp 5, and the Route 17 southbound on-ramp, known as Ramp 3. And both ramps will be realigned with a roundabout. The approach from the southbound off-ramp will have two lanes, a through left lane, which will circulate around the roundabout, and a dedicated right turn lane to New London Turnpike westbound. For traffic heading eastbound on New London Turnpike, a dedicated bypass lane will be constructed for vehicles entering the Route 17 southbound on-ramp. This ramp will also be widened to accommodate the traffic that enters from the bypass lane. Concrete splitter islands will be installed on both New London Turnpike approaches and adjacent to the dedicated bypass lane at the on-ramp. The roundabout will have an 18-foot circulatory roadway with a 20-foot concrete truck apron. The roundabout was designed to accommodate a tractor-trailer. A 54-foot landscape center island will be located at the center of the roundabout. New London Turnpike from Sycamore Street to just east of the Route 17 and both ramps will be fully reconstructed with a new pavement structure. Sidewalks will be constructed on both sides of New London Turnpike, and a sidewalk to the north will be extended westward to Sycamore Street. Drainage consisting of new catch basin structures and concrete pipes will be installed at the roundabout, and they will connect into the existing drainage system. New street lighting will also be provided at the roundabout. New London Turnpike will be widened between Route 17 northbound off and on ramps. The north side of the roadway will be widened to allow for a wider shoulder so westbound traffic can bypass vehicles turning left into the existing driveways located to the south. Widening on the south side of the roadway will accommodate a dedicated eastbound left turn lane that will be provided for vehicles entering the Route 17 northbound on-ramp. The existing signal at the Route 17 northbound off-ramp will remain in place. The widened portions of the roadway will receive full-depth pavement reconstruction, and the unwidened sections of the roadway will be milled and overlaid with new pavement. Bituminous concrete curbing will be installed on either side of the roadway, and a new section of concrete sidewalk will be installed on the south side. Drainage consisting of new catch basin structures and concrete pipes will be installed at the widened sections, and they will connect into the existing drainage system within New London Turnpike. A new traffic signal at the New London Turnpike, William Street East, Oak Street intersection will be installed, and New London Turnpike will be widened in the eastbound direction to accommodate 2 receiving lanes and a bus stop on the east side of the intersection. The Route 17 southbound off-ramp will be removed and grass will be established in that area. New sections of concrete sidewalk and pedestrian ramps will be installed at the intersection. Granite curbing will be installed in the widened areas. A short section of bituminous concrete curbing will be installed at the southwest corner of the intersection, near where the off-ramp is being removed, to match into the existing bituminous curbing at this corner that exists today. The widened portions of the roadway will receive full-depth pavement reconstruction, and the unwidened sections of the roadway will be milled and overlaid with new pavement. The new pavement is highlighted in yellow on this slide. Drainage consisting of a single catch basin structure and concrete pipe will be installed at the southwest corner, and it will connect into the existing drainage system. Here is the profile of New London Turnpike where the roundabout will be constructed. Looking at the right side of the profile, which is the east side of the roundabout, the profile in this area will match the existing grade due to the proximity of the Route 17 bridge abutments. Looking at the center of the profile, you can see that there will be a slight raise of the roadway grade at the roundabout. This grade increase is approximately 18 inches. On the left side of the profile, which is on the west side of the roundabout, the proposed grade generally matches the existing, with the exception that a short portion cuts into the existing grade, and this is to accommodate the roundabout approach geometry and to achieve standard roadway cross slopes in this area. Near the roundabout is the only area along New London Turnpike where there are proposed profile changes under this project. The image on this slide shows the profile for the Route 17 southbound on-ramp. Due to the addition of the roundabout, this ramp, as well as a southbound off-ramp, will require significant vertical changes and full-depth construction at the ramps. Looking at the right side of the profile, you can see the excavation or earth cut will be required. And on the left side of the profile, which is at the roundabout, some fill will be required near New London Turnpike. The profile for the southbound off-ramp is very similar looking to this profile. This image shows the typical section at the roundabout. The roundabout will be comprised of a 54-foot landscape central island with a 20-foot concrete truck apron, which is shown in orange, and an 18-foot circulatory roadway, which is shown in yellow. Most vehicles will travel within the circulatory roadway. However, large vehicles such as tractor trailers will mount the truck apron when maneuvering the roundabout. The roadway within and adjacent to the roundabout will have new pavement structure, and granite curbing will be installed adjacent to the roadway, truck apron, and center island. New concrete sidewalks will be installed at the roundabout, and concrete spiller islands will be installed at the New London Turnpike approaches and at the bypass lane for the Route 17 southbound on-ramp. On the top of this slide, this is a typical cross-section that shows the full-depth pavement reconstruction for New London Turnpike. The yellow shows where the pavement will be fully reconstructed. The Route 17 southbound on and off ramps will also be fully reconstructed and have the same pavement structure as New London Turnpike. The image at the bottom of the slide shows the typical section where New London Turnpike will be widened. The yellow shows where the pavement will be fully reconstructed at the widened areas, and the center section will be milled and overlaid with new asphalt. In areas where there is no widening but new pavement is being proposed, the roadway will just be milled and overlaid with new bituminous concrete pavement. I would now like to hand over the presentation to Chris Van Zanten, who is the lead traffic engineer for the project, so he can discuss the traffic design.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, my name is Chris Van Zanten. I'm a senior transportation engineer with VN Engineers. We're working with WSP on the traffic study, traffic modeling, and signal design on the project. The traffic study includes the following key intersections along New London Turnpike, starting at the northwest Sycamore Street, then Douglas Road, Route 17 southbound on and off ramps, the Route 17 northbound off ramps, the Route 17 northbound on ramps, and the William Street East, Oak Street, and Route 17 southbound off ramp. As part of the study, we performed field review and observations of the intersections along New London Turnpike. We also performed traffic capacity analysis of the existing and future roadway network for both the build and no build scenarios to allow for comparison between future conditions both with and without the project, forecasted to the 2023 opening year and 20 years out to 2043. The no build condition assumes the existing geometry will remain for these future conditions, and the build conditions assumes that the roundabout and all the other geometric improvements mentioned earlier will be constructed. The traffic projections for the study were provided by the Connecticut DOT Bureau of Policy and Planning and took into account existing traffic as well as future growth in the area. Based on the findings from the analysis, we worked with DOT and the rest of the design team to develop the geometric and signal improvements to accommodate the future traffic while maintaining safe operations for all users of the system. Next slide, please. We performed crash analysis along New London Turnpike at each of the study intersections for 2 sets of periods. The image on the left is the pre-COVID crash experience between 2017 and 2019. And the image to the right is the 2-year period that we analyzed during COVID between 2020 and 2021. As you'd expect, there were more crashes pre-COVID due to the increased traffic volumes during those years. There were a total of 35 crashes between 2017 and 2019, with 4 injuries reported. Crash types were predominantly rear end and angle crashes. Between 2020 and 2021, during the COVID years, there were 14 total crashes with 3 injuries reported. Again, the predominant crash types during this period were rear ends and angle crashes. Crashes were dispersed throughout the study area, with most crashes occurring at the signalized intersection of New London Turnpike with Oak and William Street. Next, please. As part of the traffic modeling work, we had investigated the future build conditions of the intersection of New London Turnpike with the Route 17 southbound on and off ramps 2 ways, as a signal and a roundabout. Before we get into comparing these 2 options, let's first talk about level of service. Level of service is one of the performance measures traffic engineers use to assess the operating conditions capacity of roadways and intersections. Level of service is described in terms of letter grades. That's similar to the academic grading system A through F, except there's also a letter E. A is the best operation, F is the worst operations. We must also make a distinction that the level of service criteria for roundabouts and signalized intersections are different. Both criteria are based on the calculated delay and VC ratios, volume to capacity ratios. However, the delay thresholds for determining level of service are much greater for signalized intersections when compared to roundabouts and unsignalized intersections. For example, the delay threshold between a level of service E and F is 50 seconds for a roundabout. However, the same threshold for signalized intersections is 80 seconds per vehicle. This is based on driver expectancy for the different types of traffic control. This slide shows a comparison of the operations between these two scenarios for the 2023 conditions. Morning peak is at the top, the afternoon peak is at the bottom. Here you can see that during the morning peak, the signal will operate at level of service C with about 21 seconds of delay per vehicle, with the roundabout operating at level of service A with 8 seconds of delay per vehicle. In the afternoon, both alternatives operate at level of service C. However, the overall delay for the roundabout is about 8 seconds shorter than the signalized option. Even though we see a level of service E for the southbound through left movement at the roundabout, the delay per vehicle is about 7 seconds shorter than that for the signal. Next slide. Moving on to the next slide, this slide shows a comparison of the operations between these 2 scenarios for the 2043 conditions. Under future 2043 conditions, the signal will operate at level of service C, overall level of service C, with 22 seconds of delay per vehicle, with the roundabout operating at level of service A, with only 9 seconds of delay per vehicle. In the afternoon, the signal will operate at overall level of service C, with 35 seconds of delay per vehicle, with the roundabout operating at an overall level of service E, with about 5 seconds more delay per vehicle. You can see there are some level of service Fs noted for the southbound through left and eastbound through movements. While we acknowledge that there will be times during the afternoon peak where these approaches will operate with more delay than the signal option, The overall delays at this intersection throughout the entire day are expected to be less with the roundabout when compared with the signal option, as there wouldn't be a reason for vehicles to stop at the intersection unless there was conflicting traffic. In addition, the roundabout is expected to improve safety at the intersection when compared to the signalized option. The number of conflict points between conflicting movements for a roundabout is 8, and that's reduced. It's reduced by 75% when compared to the number of conflicts for a 4-leg signalized intersection, 32 conflicts. In addition, the roundabout is expected to encourage lower speeds through the intersection, resulting in reduced crash severity in the instance of crashes based on the need for traffic to slow to navigate the roundabout. The roundabout geometry for the project was selected based on close coordination between the department and the town of Glastonbury, as well as previous experience that both agencies draw on similar roundabout projects in other areas of town and in the state. Next, we'll move to the signalized intersection of New London Turnpike with Oak Street, William Street East, and Route 17 southbound off-ramp. Here you can see the existing geometry of this 5-leg intersection. The signal currently operates with the eastbound New London Turnpike traffic with an advanced phase, followed by a phase where both approaches on New London Turnpike are able to proceed. Following this phase, the Route 17 southbound off-ramp traffic runs. Lastly, both approaches from Williams and Oak Street are provided a phase with no protected left turns. The existing signal phasing does not operate efficiently, and all other movement at the intersection must stop when the Route 17 southbound ramp traffic is moving for a relatively long 20 to 30 second phase. Next, please. The removal of the 5th leg from the intersection, we're able to significantly improve operations at the intersection through the elimination of a traffic signal phase and optimization of the phasing and timing at the intersection. The new signal being installed will use dual quad phasing, which will include protected permitted left turn phasing for all left turns from New London Turnpike, Oak Street, and Williams Street East, prior to the release of traffic from the opposing approach. Other than the removal of the Route 17 southbound leg, the main geometric change at this location will be the minor restriping of the eastbound New London Turnpike approach to allow for an exclusive left turn lane, a through lane, and a shared through right lane. Minor widening and striping is proposed to allow the 2 through lanes to merge downstream of the intersection to allow for additional capacity at the intersection. The existing exclusive pedestrian phasing will be maintained for the intersection. All the signal equipment at the intersection will be replaced as part of the project. This includes new APS, accessible pedestrian signal push buttons, LED signal heads, countdown pedestrian heads, 360 video detection, and radar advanced vehicle detection. The yellow and all red clearance intervals have also been are being recalculated at the intersection to provide for adequate vehicle clearances from subsequent phases and allow for safety. Next, we'll go to the capacity analysis results for the intersection. This slide shows a comparison of the traffic operations between the no build and build conditions for 2023 during the morning peak hour. Here you can see the proposed improvements are expected to provide an instant improvement to the operations at the intersection. The no build scenario will operate at overall level service D with 42 seconds of delay per vehicle, whereas the build scenario will operate at level service C with almost 20 seconds of delay less than the no build condition. You can see a number of the problem movements from the northbound southbound approaches will be improved as well. On the next slide. The next slide shows the same comparison for the afternoon peak hour. During the afternoon peak, the overall level of service will improve from level service D at 45 seconds per vehicle to overall level service C at 22 seconds of delay. A 23-second delay per vehicle improvement. The problem movements in the no build condition will experience significant improvement to level of service and delay in the build condition. Next slide, please. This next slide shows the comparison for the 2043 conditions during the AM peak. The improvements to overall delay and level of service also show significant improvement for the build scenario, with overall level of service improving from level of service D with 53 seconds of delay per vehicle to level of service C with 28 seconds of delay, reduction of 25 seconds per vehicle. Lastly, the next slide shows provides a comparison of the 2043 conditions during the afternoon peak. The improvements to overall delay and level of service are even more drastic for this scenario, with overall level of service improving from level of service E with 63 seconds of delay per vehicle to level of service C with 25 seconds of delay, a reduction of almost 38 seconds per vehicle. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve to talk about Roundabout Construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Now I'm going to discuss how the project will be constructed. For the Roundabout Construction, the intent is to maintain through traffic on New London Turnpike, one lane in each direction, and maintain one lane on each Route 17 ramp during construction. Pedestrian traffic will also be maintained during construction. To complete the roundabout construction, we anticipate that 4 major stages will be required, with many substages within the major stages in order to maintain continuous vehicular and pedestrian flow through the site. For the widening on New London Turnpike between the Route 17 northbound off and on ramps, the existing traffic patterns will be maintained while the north and south side of the roadway is widened. The majority of the sidewalk will be constructed on the south side of the existing sidewalk. Therefore, this will allow pedestrian traffic to use the existing sidewalk while the new walk is being built. Minimal disruption to pedestrian traffic is expected when the new sidewalk gets connected to the existing sidewalk. Moving further to the east, for the widening of the New London Turnpike at the intersection with the William Street East and Oak Street, the existing traffic patterns will be maintained while the south side of the roadway is widened and the new traffic signal equipment is installed. Where possible, the sidewalk will be constructed on the south side of the existing sidewalk first. Therefore, this will allow pedestrian traffic to use the existing sidewalk while the new sections of sidewalk are being built. Minimal disruption to pedestrian traffic is expected when the new sidewalks get connected to the existing sidewalks or in areas where the new sidewalk will be installed in the same location as the existing walk. When Bridge 388, Route 17 north, when Bridge 388 is removed, Route 17 northbound will need to be closed and traffic will need to be detoured. At least 2 weeks prior to the closure of the Route 17 northbound, changeable message signs will be installed to notify the public of the upcoming closure. This work will not occur at the same time as the removal of Bridge 389 at New London Turnpike. It is anticipated that the closure will be for 1 week to remove the structure and rebuild Route 17 northbound. The proposed detour shown in red on the screen is approximately 0.3 miles in length. So when Route 17 is closed, traffic will exit Route 17 northbound onto New London Turnpike. They'll travel east on New London Turnpike that get back onto the on-ramp and onto Route 17 northbound. So in order to remove Bridge 389, New London Turnpike will need to be closed and traffic will need to be detoured. At least 2 weeks prior to the closure of New London Turnpike, again, changeable message signs will be installed to notify the public of the upcoming closure. This work will not occur at the same time as the removal of Bridge 388 along Route 17 northbound. The closure of New London Turnpike will only occur during off-peak hours from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. The anticipated duration for the bridge removal is 1 weekend. The westbound detour shown in the cyan or the blue colored line is approximately 0.8 miles in length and will detour traffic from New London Turnpike to William Street East to Route 17 northbound, where traffic will exit onto New London Turnpike. For eastbound New London Turnpike traffic, there are 2 detour routes available. The first, shown in red, is approximately 1.2 miles in length and will detour traffic to Route 17 southbound, where traffic will exit onto Hubbard Street and then travel east to New London Turnpike. The second option for the New London Turnpike eastbound detour is shown in green and is approximately 1.8 miles in length. For this detour route, traffic will head westward onto westbound on New London Turnpike, then eastbound on Hebron Avenue, and finally southbound on Oak Street to New London Turnpike. There are some impacts anticipated for this project. First, discussing environmental, there will be tree clearing that will be required adjacent to the roundabout and the Route 17 on and off ramps. Also, there will be some tree trimming required to achieve proper sight lines to the proposed exit signage being proposed on Route 17 northbound. In addition, it is anticipated that some tree clearing will be required for the removal of the Bridge 389 wing walls. Sedimentation and erosion control measures will be installed during construction to control sediments from the site during construction. There are no wetland impacts anticipated with this project. There are 2 permits that are anticipated: construction stormwater general permit and flood management certification memorandum of understanding. And there are no anticipated right-of-way impacts for this project. Additional impacts are to utilities. Utility poles along New London Turnpike will need to be relocated to construct the roundabout, as well as for widening between the Route 17 northbound on and off ramps, and for the widening at the bus stop at the New London Turnpike Williams Oak intersection. For the removal of Bridge 389, existing communication lines that go under the bridge will need to be protected in place or relocated. Also, a fire hydrant adjacent to the New London Turnpike and near the existing Route 17 southbound ramp 5 will need to be relocated. So, schedule and cost. The anticipated construction start for this project is spring of 2024, and it's expected to have a duration of 2 construction seasons, which would put the anticipated construction end date in the fall of 2025. The anticipated construction cost at this point is approximately $6.3 million, and it's anticipated that 80% federal funds and 20% state funds will be used. I would like to note that this schedule and cost are preliminary and are subject to change. This concludes our design presentation. I will now turn things over to Aaron Foster.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We're now going to proceed to our question and answer session. And just a reminder, you could reach us by email at dotproject53-189@ct.gov. You could leave a voicemail at our phone number 860-944-1111, or you could chat in the chat window for Microsoft Teams, which was shown earlier in this presentation. And just a reminder, at our project website will be a survey. Any feedback you send us would be helpful for future presentations. And then the comment period will be open until June 27th. We will start answering questions now. I saw a couple of questions rolling in. John, you have the first one.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully that was a informative presentation for you all. We understand, before we get into the questions, I just wanted to say that we do understand that, doing the virtual public information meetings this way through Teams is a bit limited as far as its capacity to as far as interaction goes, but the department stands firm on its position that we really want to use these meetings to inform the public first, and then to receive any questions or feedback. And we're really here to take in any comments and answer any questions or concerns the public might have for these projects, and which is why we offer those the posted avenues of communication for you, and leave the comment period open for 2 weeks. But even after the 2 weeks, my contact information should be on the website as well, and you are more than welcome to ask continue to ask any questions or make any comments as the project progresses to final design and into construction. So with that, we received our first question of the night. Came via email. The question or comment was that believe the bridge should be left as is and no roundabout added on New London Turnpike near Douglas Road. Leave well enough alone. We appreciate that comment, and hopefully, the presentation tonight was informative as to the need for the removal of the bridge and the addition of the roundabout. If there are any further questions or comments that you'd like to make, as always, again, we appreciate the comment and any questions. And if you'd like to follow up, you are more than welcome to continue to coordinate with us here at the department along with the design team. So thank you again for your question and comment.
Thanks, John. We have another couple of questions coming through. All right, we had another question. Will the state install sewer between Bridge 53-189 and bridge closer to the Glastonbury Center within this project? At this time, there's no sewer installation anticipated for this project. We typically meet with the town, meet with other utilities in the area, and there's no plans for sewer installation at this time. Another question came in. Just outside the project window, Route 17 North widens from 1 lane to 2 lanes. Would not be more efficient to just keep Route 17 North as 1 lane and not widen to 2. Yeah, Route 17 northbound never officially widens to 2, as there's a handful of on-ramps that temporarily widen the roadway. It then ducks down back to 1 lane under the Hebron Avenue Bridge before merging with Route 2. Our change to the William Street to New London Turnpike off-ramp will improve safety for folks coming onto the highway in that region. There's another question. The town of Glastonbury has indicated that it wishes to align Douglas Road and Sycamore Street into one intersection. Was this considered in the project design? We had some coordination meetings with the town of Glastonbury, and this was conversed. It was never decided to incorporate that work into this project, as it's a town project. Thanks for the questions, folks. And if any of these questions, you want follow up either, tonight or in email, feel free to email at that email line, or you can, send a Teams chat tonight. There's another question that came through. There's a small stream between New London Turnpike and current eastbound exit ramp. Will that be impacted? I'll start, and I might be turning this over to Steve. But yes, there is a small stream underneath where that intersection is currently. We won't be impacting that at all. This slide just shows some of the roundabout construction if anyone's interested. Yeah, we're not impacting that. It has a couple of catch basins draining to it now, but we won't be changing that for the future. There was a second part to this question, and I'm going to read that and ask Steve if he wants to answer that. Second, what will happen to the current raise grades for those ramps?
Okay, so as I mentioned in the presentation, both ramps, right now, because of the way the roundabout is going to be constructed, it's requiring cut at both of those ramps. However, both of those ramps will still will be raised grade going up to and down from Route 17. So, for example, the southbound off ramp has about a 2-foot maximum cut for that ramp. Where we're tying in. Yeah, if you go back to the next slide, and then this is the on ramp. This is the worst cut. There's actually there's about 4 feet of cut. But if you're going on that on-ramp, it's elevated, and it'll still be elevated and drain off on either side of the roadway. Hope I answered the question.
Thanks, Steve. There's a question. Lastly, what will happen to the leftover land? Will that be retained by the state or turned over to the town? I think we're talking about the land in the regions where we're removing the existing off ramp, just so folks can understand where that is. And Don, I'm going to call on you.
Thanks, Aaron. Don Worsh from CHA. All of these state-owned land on the north side of New London Turnpike, the land that is bounded by the on-ramp to 17 northbound and the right-hand off-ramp to off of 17 southbound, that is all going to remain ConnDOT property as it is bounded within the interchange itself. The portion of land on the south side of New London Turnpike, where the left-hand off-ramp turns and joins the current intersection with Oak Street and William Street. That portion will no longer be bounded with the interchange once the ramp is removed. The Office of Rights-of-Way at ConnDOT has had discussions with the town about what the future of that property may be. Typically, the state does not like to divest land that they currently own, but they are in discussions with the town to see if that is valuable land to the town itself. It's possible that they may end up giving to the town of Glastonbury. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. There's a few more questions that have been rolling in. Let me read a few of them off. There's some folks that represent Bike Walk in Glastonbury and owns a business in the one-stop plaza adjacent to the project site. What are the specific plans for bike and pedestrian safety? Steve, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Aaron. Currently, there are no specific plans for bike lane improvements for this project. However, there are a lot for the pedestrian safety. So I'll discuss this one first. Around the roundabout, existing sidewalk patterns are going to remain along the south side of New London Turnpike. And so the sidewalk will come around and it'll cross the on-ramp and continue on. We are adding a specific, right now there's no sidewalk under the Route 17 bridge. So there will be a dedicated sidewalk under the Route 17 bridge, and that's going to certainly provide better safety than there is today. There'll be a shelf separating the sidewalk and the road between the sidewalk and the roadway. Also at the roundabout, we could cross New London Turnpike to the north now. There will be concrete splitter islands there where the two crossings are on the on-ramp and New London Turnpike, so that provides pedestrian refuge. If a pedestrian gets trapped while vehicles are coming through there. And then there's also a sidewalk connection that now goes on the north side of New London Turnpike and connects up to a newer section of sidewalk that was recently extended at Sycamore Street. So if we move on.
Just to add to, can I just add something about the roundabout?
Sure.
Pedestrian safety? It looked like in the question there's a concern about distances from the roundabout exits to the pedestrian crossings, and the current layout does provide for at least the minimum distance from the roundabout circulatory roadway to the crossing at least 20 to 25 feet for each crossing.
Thank you, Katie. We could move to the next slide, Aaron.
This one.
Okay, yeah, and then where we're widening, there is an existing sidewalk on the south side of the New London Turnpike. So in this widened area, we're putting sidewalk, 5-foot concrete sidewalk back in place. And so maintaining existing pedestrian patterns there. And then if we move on to the next location. So with the removal of the off-ramp, we're reconfiguring the sidewalk. Well, with the removal of the off-ramp and the widening on the south side for the bus stop, we're reconfiguring the sidewalk that exists. There's already a pedestrian crossing. This is actually going to make it safer by eliminating one leg of the intersection. So now pedestrians only have to cross. Now before they were crossing William Street East and also the off ramp. So now they're only going to have, there's one crossing eliminated there. We're also making improvements to the pedestrian crossing on the west side of the intersection, putting a new ramp and a new connection to the existing sidewalk. So all pedestrian ramps are going to meet the new ProWAG requirements for ADA safety. And then Chris, if you just want to quickly touch on the pedestrian push buttons.
Sure. So we're going to use accessible pedestrian push buttons out there. So the pedestrians, when they push the button, it will stop movements on all approaches. It's an exclusive pedestrian phase. Crossing distances are a little shorter here, so that's also good in that we're reducing the time that they're in the crosswalk. So I think it's going to improve crossings here for pedestrians by reducing crossing distances and providing that equipment for the push buttons and the countdown signal heads. And we've timed all those crossings according to the DOT standards to ensure that minimum 7-second walk time and adequate clearance is provided for the signal. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve, Chris, and Katie for those answers. There's a question. Would you address the anticipated closure durations for the New London Turnpike and other abutting Glastonbury roadways? Steve, is there a slide you want me to?
Yeah, just could you read the question again?
Yes. Would you address the anticipated closure durations for New London Turnpike and other abutting Glastonbury roadways? So I think the question is asking, construction.
So I think, yeah, if you go to if you go to the slide with the detours. So we're not the only closure that we're anticipating for New London Turnpike is when Bridge 389 is removed.
This slide, right, Steve?
That's correct. So that's when we're anticipating a closure for New London Turnpike. We're anticipating that this will not be a full closure. It'll be done during off-peak hours from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it's anticipated that the duration to remove that bridge is going to be done in one weekend. So that's the only time that we're anticipating closure of New London Turnpike. If you go up a couple slides. Okay, you could see, I could start at that one. So there we're planning on when they're doing the widening, maintaining existing traffic along New London Turnpike, no closures, just the contractor will put up barrels, they'll do most of their work in off-peak hours. And maintain existing traffic patterns. And then same thing for when they're doing the widening along between the northbound on and off ramps. If you go up one slide, Aaron. Very similar, maintaining one lane in each direction while the contractor does their widening So they have the ability, they won't be working on both sides simultaneously. They'll do one side then the other, so they could shift traffic as required and maintain the required travel lane widths through that area. And then the work area will just be drummed off. If you could go to the backup slides, Aaron, for the stage construction for the roundabout, what's anticipated. Okay, so as I mentioned, while the roundabout is going to be constructed, New London Turnpike and the on and off ramp traffic will be maintained. So, for example, in stage one, we're anticipating that on the north side of the roadway, they're going to be building some temporary and part of the permanent sidewalks to accommodate pedestrian travel through the area in the future stages. And then there'll be some temporary widening on the south side of New London Turnpike, as long as go back to the first slide there, as well as some temporary widening on the Route 17 southbound on-ramp. And then in stage 1 or 2, what'll happen where they just did the temporary widening on the south side, and move on to the stage 2 then. So we anticipate traffic will be shifted to the south, 1 lane in each direction on New London Turnpike. They're going to do work to the north. They're also going to be shifting traffic on both ramps and working on one side of each ramp. Moving on to the third stage, traffic is going to be shifted to the north. They're going to be constructing on the south side of New London Turnpike, and there's also going to be ramp work going on. At the same time, for stages 2 and 3, there's going to be pedestrian route. It's going to go from New London Turnpike. If you're going westbound, you'll cross New London Turnpike as a pedestrian with a temporary crossing on travel on the north side of the roadway, and then cross back over around Sycamore Street at another temporary crossing. And then the last stage of construction, which would be stage 4, wherever there was, vehicular traffic will be in its final condition, will be going around the roundabout. The contractor will be completing up the center island, removing any areas where they had temporary pavement on there, but always maintaining traffic on New London Turnpike.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
That was a good answer. We had a follow-up question, a couple follow-up questions. Thank you for those. Follow-up question on adding sewer between the bridges. There should be, there is no sewer currently between the bridges. Who is in charge of this? Don, I'm gonna call on you to answer this, please.
Yep, thanks, Aaron. Sanitary sewers in the town of Glastonbury are maintained and serviced by the Glastonbury Water Pollution Control Authority, which is overseen by the engineering department in the town of Glastonbury. So if you're looking to contact someone regarding sanitary sewers in the project area, you should direct your inquiries to the town of Glastonbury engineering department. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. All right, we have another follow-up question. This one's a little bit longer, so I'm going to read this. Just give me a moment. I understand potential safety benefits of roundabouts and have personally experienced some at the New London/Hebron Avenue roundabout. Specifically, I'm concerned about the widening of New London Turnpike that is intended to encourage cars to pass turning cars. Steve and Chris, I'm going to ask you to help me on this one a little bit in a moment after I finish reading it. This seems counter to me from traffic calming safety measures. Secondly, will there be a plan for bicyclists to pass through the area without going through the roundabout? I am personally comfortable, but many cyclists are not. For example, at the previous roundabout mentioned, there is a ramp before the roundabout that allows cyclists to dismount and enter the sidewalk. Regarding pedestrian crossings, we ask that you consider all possible safety measures, including but not limited to appropriate distances from the roundabout exits, safe sight lines not obstructed by trees or other large objects, and signal lights such as those in effect near flank and on New London Turnpike. Currently, it's rather uncommon for vehicles to stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk near Sycamore Street. So I hope that this project increases the likelihood of vehicles will stop. The good news is that there's tremendous amount of room for improvement. Thank you for the question. I'm going to start with the north side of the roundabout. We were meeting with the town and discussing sidewalk on the north side, and we came to the decision to add a sidewalk on the north side of the roundabout. Hopefully that helps with the later part of your statement. On the north side from Sycamore Street, we will have a sidewalk on the north side of the New London Turnpike that follows New London Turnpike, crosses the off-ramp, continues on New London Turnpike, and then it has a sidewalk so that pedestrians can cross over, or cyclists coming through could dismount and use this sidewalk. There was also a statement here about widening the New London Turnpike. We have a couple of minor widenings on New London Turnpike. This is to allow any passing cars that, pass a stopped car that's turning into a driveway on the southern side. As there's a few businesses, we're trying to prevent major buildup interfering with other intersections. We're also adding a small turning bay in this region so that we could continue the flow of traffic while providing standard lane widths and shoulder widths for any pedestrians or cyclists that are needed. Steve, you have any addition to that?
Actually, no, I thought you explained it well for the widening areas.
I think I got all the questions. If there's any other follow-up questions, feel free to send them to the email after the meeting or send them tonight. We'll be here for a little while. I think we have another question coming in. When removing the bridge that crosses New London Turnpike, will the raised ramp construction on either side be removed? Also, the town shows a stream there also. I'm gonna just note the last part. Yeah, there is a stream there currently running under the roundabout. That little water course will be maintained, and we won't be touching it. There's a couple other little, percolating water bodies. Those will be maintained and continued, during and after construction. For when removing the bridges that cross New London Turnpike, will the raised ramp construction on either side be removed? We will be, let's see, do we have a slide in here showing that?
I don't believe there's a slide showing the bridge removal, but the idea is that we will grade out at 2-to-1 slopes from the roadway until we reach the existing ramp grades, and that will all be, a turf establishment and grass over. All the pavement of that ramp will be removed.
Thanks, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a question coming in about benefits and advantages of roundabouts, and if tractor trailers will be able to handle this. Let me read this. Give me a second. The question or statement is, one of the advantages of the current setup has been that it has helped tractor trailers drivers turn better. Will tractor trailers be able to handle this roundabout well enough to keep traffic moving at a reasonable rate? Also, there is a significant traffic on New London Turnpike at the off-peak hour of 6 p.m. and road closure at that time would be significantly disturbed traffic. Would it be possible for closure times to be changed in it to accommodate this? Steve, do you have any initial response to this?
Yeah, I'll start with the first part. So the roundabout, if you could go to that, Aaron, that slide, the roundabout was designed to handle WB67, which is the largest size tractor trailer. So it will make all movements. What will happen, if you could go to the next slide, Aaron, you could probably see it better, or actually even go to the cross section down a few slides. So the circulatory roadway is an 18-foot wide roadway with a 2-foot shoulder. And then there's a mountable truck apron that's 20 feet. So what'll happen is those larger design vehicles will, when they maneuver through the roundabout, the tractor trailers will mount the truck apron, but will not extend into the landscape central island. So they could easily make that turn. Katie, what kind of speeds would they be making through that? They'd be very low, but I think you analyzed that.
The WB67 speeds are low. The circulatory roadway itself is about a 15 mile per hour speed with entry speeds of about 20 to 22 miles an hour.
Okay.
There's an additional question in here.
Well,
Also,
there's about, I'm sorry, yeah, about the off-peak
yes.
hour from 6 p.m. So I might ask you to weigh in a little bit on the traffic, Chris, but to discuss it first, we could certainly look at that and make adjustments for those hours. But the intent was we could, again, relook at what the actual counts show, what the peak times are. But the intent is for that bridge work, that closure of New London Turnpike to take place during the off-peak hours, so as not to disrupt traffic. Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add on the volumes.
No, I think we can look further into that to see. I don't have the volumes in front of me right now, but I think we can evaluate that further with the department if it's something that we can.
And Chris and Steve, I'd like to add, if the question is about when construction will take place, typically the department makes sure that significant construction like a closure wouldn't take place during close to peak hours, even if it's less traffic at 6 p.m. That's not a typical construction time. We might be looking at a 9 p.m. or later for the bridge removal period. Yes. So to answer the question additionally, would it be possible for the closure times to be changed to accommodate this? Yes, we will. We look at all the data and we come up with times that the contractor is able to do the work that has the least amount of impact to the traveling public. Finally, while this proposal has numerous safety improvements, how else does this benefit the road users? Many of us are used to the current setup, and the new traffic patterns are always a shock to adjust to. People still do not fully seem to understand the rotaries in town center despite being constructed 5 years ago. Additionally, have other cheaper safety measures been considered, such as the installation of protection left turn signal for drivers on Oak Street? Chris or Stephen, I don't know if you have any input on parts of those.
Sure, I can start it out. So, for the roundabout, we showed in the slides that we showed that, throughout basically the roundabout performed well for the AM and PM better with less delay than the signal would. And, during those off-peak times, even, people aren't going to need to stop at the roundabout. They're going to do their yielding and they're going to go. They're not going to have these longer times that they're going to have to wait. And in those instances where sometimes when you wait at a signal and there's nobody there, you're not going to have that situation. So throughout the day and overall throughout the day, I think you're going to see, better movements, better capacity. There will be a couple, some during the afternoon peak. There's going to be some movements that aren't going to operate as well, but then they'll clear and operate again. With regards to the protected left turn signal from Oak Street, we're including that in the new design. So we are incorporating that. That's without if we made just that left turn with that fifth leg still there, the intersection's not gonna operate well, because you're adding by adding a protected left, you're adding more phases to the intersection. So you're adding more time that people are going to have to wait at those other movements. So it's not going to solve all the issues that are happening there. And that signal doesn't operate very efficiently now with the five 5 legs. So we're by eliminating that 5th leg, it really does improve operations quite a bit. As noted, I think we had one in the future of 2043 in the afternoon was almost 30 seconds improvement that's per vehicle during the peak hour, and that's overall. So significant improvements for that intersection by the removal of that 1 leg.
Katie, there's a part of this question asked about the speeds that are across the crosswalk. Can you remind me what those speeds were?
Yeah, so the entry speeds into the roundabout are about 20 to 22 miles per hour. So as you approach at the crosswalks, the vertical geometry accommodates 25 on the approaches, and then as you enter, it's about 22.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks, Chris, for your previous answer. I think there's more in that question. Steve, I don't know if you have anything else to add to this.
I just wanted, there part of that it talked about additionally have other cheaper safety measures been considered. Well, I think, no, I'm sorry, Chris did answer that. No, I think everything in that one question I think has been answered. Part of that, I think it's a spinoff. Is there our replanting plan for the areas left? So what we were anticipating was that the removal of the ramp would be seeded. You know, well, if you go back to for the ramp, go back to that cross section, Aaron, where the bridge 388, where that's going to be removed. Well, for both bridges, we're anticipating it's just going to be grass side slopes at both locations, as well as for the removal of the southbound off ramp. And that's the one that's about 2,200 feet of ramp removal. Now, I don't know if there's been discussions, Aaron, has there been any discussions on other treatments for those areas?
Yeah, I think at this point it's just a conservation seeding mix for any of the removed sections. Thanks, Steve, for answering that. I think we have another question. There's a question to identify the speeds across the crosswalk on the roundabout bypass roadways. They appear to be very fast. I think Katie just mentioned that they're 20, 25 miles an hour in that region at the bypass crosswalk. Katie, do you have a response to that?
No, that's correct, Aaron.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I think just a supplemental answer to one of the previous questions about the the closures. Oftentimes the department will use for the bridge closures and the detours, accelerated bridge construction, try to limit that the impact time of the closure to likely a weekend, if not less. Since these are just removals and we're not building a whole new bridge, that is significantly easier than a full build construction. WSP has a significant amount of experience with accelerated build bridge construction, as well as the department overall. These locations, since we're just removing them, especially the one over New London Turnpike, should be fairly short in duration.
Yeah, and I could add to that with the experience, Aaron. Recently, many people may have heard the project. It happened a few years ago. It was Route 1 over I-95, where 2 bridges. It was an accelerated bridge project that we were involved with, where a bridge in over 2 weekends, one bridge was removed in 1 weekend and a new one slid into place. So actually the removal portion, once the contractors are set up, they could actually remove the superstructure of the bridge in a matter of hours. Could be 4 to 5 hours worth of work to remove the superstructure. That's the part that the upper part that the cars travel on. So they could demo things very quickly. So that would be the intent. So since it's purely demo at the Bridge 389, which is on New London Turnpike, we're anticipating a shorter closure or temporary closures for that over the course of a weekend. And then with the Bridge 388, the removal of that superstructure is going to take a little bit longer because we're removing the superstructure, but then the contractor has to fill in that area. So we're anticipating that's going to be a little bit longer for them to fill that in and get all that section of Route 17 reconstructed.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like there's a follow-up question, not entry speeds at the bypass crosswalk. So I'm going to zoom to this slide. You know, there is two lanes, one from the off-ramp that goes directly on the New London Turnpike, and then one from New London Turnpike that goes onto the on-ramp. Katie, do you have those speeds for those ramps at the crosswalk locations?
Yeah, again, those the horizontal and vertical geometry for those ramps were designed for 25-mile-per-hour speeds. As far as any PED buttons or warning lights, are we proposing those types of signals at this location, Chris?
No, we're not. We're not. There is signage. I think, Kitty, you've got a comprehensive signage and marking plan there to provide advanced warning for vehicles traveling along that slip ramp there.
Correct. We do have advanced warning signage for the roundabout and pedestrian signage highlighting crossing locations,
as well as yield markings
mm-hmm.
At the roundabout.
And I think, Derek, you want to have some input there?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so just to address the comment, 25 miles an hour, we'll take a look a little bit more into that. I know that's what we're designing for, but we are taking that comment to heart, and we'll just take a look at those speeds for that bypass. So if you can, whoever that is, I know you posted anonymously, just submit your name and potentially your email. We'll keep that private so no one else will see it, and we can respond to you with a follow-up just to address it. Thank you.
Or alternately, if you want to send an email to the project email, we can respond to you directly. I'll just put that on screen right now. And thanks everyone for all these questions. Yeah, just a reminder, if you have any other questions that aren't answered tonight, feel free to email us at the DOT project 53189 at ct.gov. You could send us a voicemail. We'll be listening to that for 2 weeks. 860-944-1111. And then tonight, if you have any more questions, chat with us live and we'll respond and read them and respond to them directly.
We're just doing some last combing through some of the questions to make sure that we've answered all of them. So we appreciate everybody's patience as we make sure that we capture everything that's been submitted tonight. And once again, we'd like to just remind everybody who joined us tonight that the comment period will stay open for another 2 weeks until the Monday, June 27th. So if you had a question, you forgot, or you think of another one, but it's after tonight, do not worry about it. No worries. You can certainly go to the project website as it's shown on the screen and take down the email as well as the phone number and submit your questions.
Thanks, John. I think
yeah, Derek,
wants to
do you
add
have
something in
here?
Yeah, this is Derek again. So we did get one more comment. I'll just read it off. So overall, I must say this proposal seems more competent than a previous iteration presented many years prior. While I personally hate to see these bridges go, I am glad to see that at least some thought was put into this in this iteration. I hope this project is refined a bit and is truly thought through if and or when it is implemented. Appreciate the comment. You know, we've put a lot of work into this. We got the wheels spinning now. I know we came to the town a while back, and it's revived now. Again, we're still working through specifically the roundabout design. So like we mentioned, we still have a comment that we're going to address and look into a little bit more, but we'll go from there. So really, when we come to the town and the public like this, we're really at 30% design, and that's where we are with the roundabout. So that's why we don't have necessarily all the questions or all the answers right at this moment. So. But as we refine the design, we'll keep fine tuning things and create a good safe passage for the public. Thank you.
And any additional questions or comments after this, we could be reached at that DOT project 53-189@ct.gov. For any follow-up questions, we're here to answer them, and learn from the public and make sure that any input that you have, we can try to bring into design. John, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Aaron, and thanks for that taking that last comment, Derek. With that, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight and participating in our efforts to keep everybody informed so that we might receive all questions and input to produce the best possible result for a successful project. So, and as it's been stated by everybody here tonight and the project team, we really are open to the questions and comments. So please submit your any that you might have over the next 2 weeks, and we will continue to keep coordination with the town as well, and you may address any concerns to them as well, and we'll be in contact with them as the project progresses through design. And receiving feedback through the public involvement, such as tonight's meeting, is very important to the department's success to provide the services that are needed. So with that, we'll conclude the meeting for tonight. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great evening. Take care.